biggest thing that you need to think about if you are going to start your own business is managing your time really carefully. To be competitive in the industry, you got to be working most of the time 6 days a week. You've got to be on the ball, you've got to be very consistent, and you're probably working 50 to 60 hours a week if you're a really high performer. Becoming that business owner and doing all of that other stuff, it added an extra 20 hours to my week. Agents go and start their own brand, and they've literally been in real estate for a couple of months and they've sold 1 or 2 properties, and then they go out and start their own business. Personally, I think that's a terrible idea. When I estimate all those costs to start a business, you're looking at somewhere between, in the first year, Agents, welcome to the Get Keen podcast, your #1 destination for learning how to get the most out of your real estate career. I'm Dan Lee, founder of Plum Property, one of Queensland's largest independent real estate offices, and Plum Partners, where we've helped dozens of agents create, run, and grow their very own agencies. On Get Keen, I chat to high-performing agents, principals, and agency owners, so you have the tools, strategies, and insights to grow your business and live the best life for yourself and your family. Now let's get keen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to the Get Keen podcast for another valuable lesson from yours truly. Today I'm going to talk to you about what it takes to start your own agency. I'm going to talk about costs associated and what you need to do to set that up. This is for people, for agents that perhaps one day want to start their own agency, or perhaps you're getting close to the idea of doing something like this and you just want a bit of guidance from someone that's done it themselves from the ground up. Because I was once an agent at an agency for 10 years. I was at an LJ Hooker business, very high performing agent with a team. And I made the decision in 2015 that I was going to go and start my own agency. And so I left the big agency and I went into my apartment just up the road from my own business and started my own brand. And it was a big risky move, but I backed myself and it certainly paid off in the long run. And a lot of people have this on their mind in their career. Is this something, that they might do this one day? But a lot of people don't actually end up taking the plunge because they're just really unsure how to do it, not sure what's on the other side, and they get used to that comfort that they're in. So I'm here to share a little bit about my story, but also just giving you some step-by-step guidance into how to set it up and what it's going to cost. So firstly, my biggest piece of advice for anyone that does want to start their own real estate business is you have to be able to make money instantly. So in order to make money instantly, you either need to be buying an agency that already has a sales team or a rent roll that has income coming in, or you need to be a high-performing agent yourself. And what you'll see is the majority of agencies that they start with a high-performing business owner. So someone that's been in the industry for a long time, selling property, who has a profile, who is going to be able to list properties immediately. That's essential for business ownership. So if you're not at the stage where you are either buying an existing business that's got revenue coming in frequently, or you don't have another massive skill that is going to be able to get income into the business quickly. For example, you're a master recruiter, you have a huge network or something like that, or you've got some other people that are going to come and join you that will bring revenue in, then you have to be a high-performing agent. If you're not a high-performing agent yet, I see this quite often. I see, agents go and start their own brand, and they've literally been in real estate for a couple of months and they've sold 1 or 2 properties, and then they go out and start their own business. Personally, I think that's a terrible idea because you need a certain level of income to sustain a good business, and in order to grow a business as well, you need income in order to pay for marketing, for staff, for all the extra bits and pieces that it takes. And business ownership also takes a lot more time because there's a lot more little jobs that you have to be accountable for. It's a big difference to being just part of an agency where you come into the office and they have admin, they have technology, and you just come and go as you please and list and sell. So my first tip is make sure you're a high performer. I think a minimum, absolute minimum GCI that you should be earning is around 400K. I certainly think even these days, 500 plus is sort of the safe mark. And maybe experience in the industry for 2 to 3 years, so you at least know the process of what it takes to prospect really hard and see those listings come in over that nurturing period in time. Once you're at that point and you're ready to start your own business, the first things that you're going to need to do is set up a company. That's really easily done. You can do that through an accountant. You can even set up a company online yourself if you go to the ASIC website. Setting up a company and in the right structure, whether it's going to be under a trust or just a standing company, that's a discussion you should have with a good accountant, especially if you're setting it up with someone else. What's the setup going to be? That's really important. So get your company set up. Setting up a company, though, it costs not that much, maybe $1,000 if you do it through an accountant. If you do it yourself, less than $500. You're also going to need your full license. So some people don't think about this and they think I'm going to go start a brand at my own business, and they don't have their full license yet. So in Queensland, there's 2 licenses. There's a salesperson's certificate. That's not a license, but that gives you your initial step into real estate and allows you to list and sell properties and sign contracts. But then there's the full license. Now, Queensland's the easiest way to get a full license. You don't need any experience. You can go straight from never selling a property to getting your full license. All it is it's an extra modules in the course, and it's a slightly more expensive fee. So a licensing course in Queensland will take about 5 days in-house. If you do it at an in-house place, it'll cost you about $1,100 a year to have your license. But then you're also going to need your corporation's license. So that's the license for the actual company. So you have your personal one, and then you have a corporation's license for the company. So 2 licenses at a cost of around $1,100 each. So call it $2,200 for your licensing costs. In other states like New South Wales, Victoria, it's actually a bit harder to get your license. You have to start off your first year under an associate certificate for 1 year. Then you can go to your class 2, which you have to have for another 2 years, I believe. And then you can go for your class 1 license. So you have to have been in the industry for at least 3 years selling to be able to get your license. So a bit more red tape in New South Wales and Victoria, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But the costs for getting your license are relatively similar, okay? And you will need your corporations and your personal license there. So that's your first sort of start. Once you've done that, you've got your full license, your company set up, you'll then need your insurance. So insurance is compulsory, just like having insurance for your car, CTP insurance. You need your compulsory business insurance, which gives you indemnity insurance and covers you for public liability, things like that. If someone slipped over in one of your open homes and wanted to sue you, that would be covered under your public liability insurance. So insurance for a small team business, less than 5 employees, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,000 a year for that as well. And that insurance obviously the premium will grow as your business grows and your revenue grows. So it's kind of formulated on amount of employees and amount of revenue is what your premiums will be at. The next thing you'll need to do is set up your bank accounts. So, no specific bank you need to be a part of, but some are better for business banking than others. I'm with ANZ and Macquarie. I find them quite good. But you're going to need to set up a trust account as well. So you're going to have your business general accounts, some sub accounts, and you're going to have a trust account as well. That's where all of your deposits will go into and all the marketing money, and that account and all that money has to be handled according to the law, and you have to get someone who knows what they're doing in trust accounting to manage that money. It's not all too hard, but it's just something else that you have to learn and keep an eye on. And that bank account will be audited every quarter at a cost to your business. So that's important to know. The trust account auditing will cost you around $1,000 a quarter. So, you can put that in your sums as well. So licensing, 2,200, insurance, 1,500 to 2,000, company setup, one-off cost, $1,000, and trust account auditing, $1,000 a quarter. The next thing you're going to do, once you've got all that set up, you're basically ready to go to start your business. And I guess the first thing you're going to do with your business is figure out what it's going to look like. So you're going to need to do some branding and build a website, create your logos, your name, all of that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, branding and website costs can vary depending on who you go with. I'm sure if you do it on the absolute cheap, just a one-page website, you could probably do for a couple of grand, and you can get some cheap logos done overseas on Fiverr for a couple of $100. But if you want to have a really good-looking brand and a full setup, it's and a great website with many pages and all the bits and bobs, you're looking at a cost of around 30 grand through a professional agency to do all of that. That would include logos, branding, and website, and templates and things like that. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the content. Just quickly, if you're interested in knowing what it might look like for you to own your own real estate business and brand, then that's what me and my team do. We help agents to create, run, and grow their own agency and brand so they can earn higher commissions and set up a better life for themselves. If you're interested in what that might look like, just click the link in the show notes and book a call with me or one of my team members, and we'll find out whether or not this is a good fit for you. Now let's get back to the episode. The next thing you're going to need is to set up your real estate portals. That can be done pretty easily by calling a realestate.com rep, domain rep, and you'll sign a contract with them, and you can get set up with your company portal. You'll have to have your brand ready, you'll have to have your company, and you'll have to have your licensing in order to do that. That's why you'd have to wait till all those things are done before you can set up your realestate.com accounts. But you'll obviously need those portals because that's where you're going to advertise all of your listings that are for sale. Now, those portals also come with a cost. So realestate.com, again, it varies depending on what subscription model you're on, but it ranges anywhere between around $300 up to $800 a month to have a realestate.com account. So that's a cost that your company's going to have to bear as well. And domain, slightly cheaper to have it on there, but again, there's a cost. So, and then you're going to need to set up all of your technology and subscriptions. So with any real estate business, you're going to need RP data or price finder, a CRM. There's a multitude of different options there, but CRMs usually cost, for your first couple of 3 users or so, maybe about $750 to $1,000 a month for a CRM. RP data subscriptions, as I said, a contract forms program. So in Queensland, that would be REIQ Forms, which is called RealWorks. In New South Wales, it's REIV. Well, that's Vic. New South Wales, I think it's something similar, but it's the platform where you make your contracts. There's DocuSign, there's storage, so maybe Dropbox or OneDrive or something like that. Some sort of proposal platform like Realtor or something like that. There's about 6 really important softwares you're going to need. You're also going to need your Google Business Suite or your Microsoft Office 365 and all the subscriptions there. I estimate, and I've done this, I had to do it when I started my own business. It was a bit cheaper back then, but due to inflation, it sits at around 25 to 30 grand a year in subscription fees is what it's going to cost you as a small business. That's a year, so you can sort of factor that into a yearly cost. And then you're going to need some graphic design. So this is for your ongoing stuff. Obviously, when your logos and your brand is created, you're going to need someone to help you make brochures, do billboards, social media ads, bus stops, wherever you're going to be branding yourself or your business. Someone's got to create that stuff and make it look good. So you can get that stuff done in-house by someone, but you're going to need some graphic design help, whether you outsource it or someone's in your office and doing it. So, I would add a budget on of roughly 25 grand a year for some graphic design. Social media help. So you're going to have someone to run your ads, make social media posts, post stuff for you. You can do some of that stuff yourself, but as a business owner and a high performing agent, you want to keep clear of all of this stuff because it takes up your time away from listing and selling. So having a good social media manager who manages your ads and post stuff for you and helps you keep up to speed with, making sure you've got enough brand awareness going out there, that's going to cost you probably 15 grand a year as well. The next thing you're going to need is a bookkeeper. So someone to manage all of the inflow and outflow of the money in your business, tagging all of the transactions, making sure that everything aligns, everything's accounted for, everything's reconciled, all of the money coming into the business from vendor paid advertising, all the bills that come in add up correctly to what's collected, and then someone to do the trust accounting as well on top of that. Now, that doesn't have to be your bookkeeper. That could be just someone else in the office. In the beginning, I did it myself, the trust accounting. So, if you're a brand new business and you're doing it all on your own, it's probably going to fall into your lap as a new job. But again, it's not something that you want to do because it just takes up a lot of time and you've got to focus on listing and selling. Also, with a brand new business, you're probably going to need at least one full-time staff member to manage the back-end operations of your business. So, everything from ordering signboards, your HR, probably a bit of social media, a bit of trust accounting, bit of all of this kind of stuff, making brochures. But I think most businesses, if you're, doing volume of 40 sales plus in your business, you're probably going to need 2 full-time people, one to sort of help with the sales side of things and one to just generally manage all of the other office admin and contract stuff. So 2 full-time people in a small business, with those sorts of skills and experience, you're going to be looking at wages of at least 160,000 plus super plus, other little bits and pieces and a space for them to be in your office. So I'd equate that up to probably 180,000 in costs for a couple of people to manage your business. And then you're going to need a premises to work from. So you don't necessarily need a commercial premises to start. As I've said before, my first premises was my apartment, just where I lived. And I was there for 18 months, although I did move out of there from living and we actually shipped in desks and other people and just converted that apartment into an office. Not long after I started, I then moved out and lived somewhere else. It's not essential to have like a commercial office with, on the main road with good exposure and that sort of thing. It's not going to stop you getting business from working from home. I can tell you that much. No, your clients don't care. They really don't. They don't even know, to be honest, most of them. I think of all the times that I listed and sold in that apartment, only 2 of my clients even found out that I worked from an apartment. Most people just never even ask. They don't even know because they never even come into your office. And when you're sort of avoiding them coming into your office, you'll make time to go to them all the time. So you'll say, "Oh, I'll come and pick up the keys. I'll come and meet you here. Or meet me at this cafe, or I'll meet you at your house at this time." And you just find ways of, meeting any client not at your office. Obviously, once you have the office, you can save a lot of time because people can come to you. But it's not going to stop you getting business, but it will stop you from growing if you don't move into a bigger premises where you can have a bigger team. That's really the important thing about having an office. But as for starting, not important because it's probably just going to be you and a couple of other people. So the premises to work from, start from home. But if you do go get a 50 square meter or something premises, you're probably looking at 30 grand a year for something like that in a good location. So now the big thing to think about this, so when I estimate all those costs to start a business, you're looking at somewhere between, in the first year, somewhere between 200 to 250K in fixed costs. Might be a little bit less the next year because there was some initial startup costs with the branding and and the setting up the company and all of that kind of stuff. But let's say it's 2 to 250 in the first year and maybe 180 in the second year. So you're going to need at least that income just to break even, and that's not even after paying yourself a little bit of a wage, right? So if you want to pay yourself 100K from the business, then you need to make that 2 to 250 plus that 100K. You're already at 350, possibly 400K GCI just to pay yourself 100K at this point. So you can see that the money can really disappear quite quickly with all the costs associated with the business. And obviously, as you grow, as you put other staff members on, those are big salaries, and that's you've got to be earning good money to be able to pay for it all. So, that's just something to think about, and I think we all sort of know that when we get into business. But I just wanted to sort of outline, where the costs sort of sit for people, because it's hard to actually know how much it costs without diving deep into it. But probably the biggest thing that you need to think about if you are going to start your own business is managing your time really carefully. Because if you're a high performing agent in an agency, it's already a full-time gig, right? To be competitive in the industry, you got to be working most of the time 6 days a week, right? So you got your Monday to Friday plus your Saturday work. You've got to be on the ball. You can't be someone who you got to be very consistent. And you're probably working 50 to 60 hours a week if you're a really high performer. That's what most high performing agents are doing. They're working 50 to 60 hours a week. And when you go out and start your own business, it all sounds great that you're going to get 100% of the commission, but you don't think of all the costs that are going to come off it sometimes. But the biggest thing that a lot of agents don't think about is the extra time that it's going to take to do all of that extra stuff in their business, right? And that's what I had to find out the hard way when I went and started my own business. Luckily for me, I kind of knew what I was in for, and I didn't have a family. I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. So I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. So that meant that I could really put everything into it. I could have late nights, early mornings, and it didn't, there was no one else that was being affected by that except me. So that was very beneficial for me to be able to do that. But for some people, that might not be possible. And when you go and start a business, like when I started my business, I was the trust accountant, I was the bookkeeper, I did the graphic design, I did all the social media ads and postings, I did all the contract work, I organized all the suppliers, I wrote the ads, and then I was being an agent. So I was, doing cold calls, I was booking appraisals, I was going to those appraisals, I was listing properties, I was calling the buyers, and I was just doing absolutely everything. And, I was already a high performing agent working 50 hours a week. Becoming that business owner and doing all of that other stuff, it added an extra 20 hours to my week. So I went from a 50-hour a week job to a 70-hour a week job. Now, it was hardcore. I'll tell you, in that first year or two, there were so many days that I was in the office at 8:30 a.m. for a start, and I wasn't leaving the office till 12 at midnight. And that would be 3 to 4 times a week. Luckily, I had my best mate Dylan with me, who, was there by my side. He was building the rent roll, and we were in this together. So we would never leave the office unless the other person was leaving as well. And that kept us both really accountable and in the trenches together. But because we were doing things on the cheap and, we didn't have the funds to just hire heaps of staff, we were doing everything ourselves. And that was really probably I'd say would be the hardest thing, is just the extra time that you have to give it in order to make it work if you're going to go and do it all on your own. Okay. And that's the thing. And I guess that's where, after 7 years of building the business, and it wasn't always like that. Let me just say, it was only a year to a year and a half, maybe probably a year and a half to 2 years where it was really hardcore like that. And then once we'd started earning good income, saved up money, and we'd put on a few extra staff to help us, we could bring those hours back a little bit as we were able to delegate a lot of the work. But for a lot of agents, like the thought of going out and doing, being business owner, taking on all these jobs and all the fixed costs and making it work whilst they might be in their 30s, they might be, they might be a father or a wife or a husband and have other commitments, other responsibilities. That might all seem just a bit too hard. And although they might want to do it and they might see that, hey, that could lead me to greatness, that could really fulfill a dream of mine, or it could help me earn an income that I wouldn't be able to do just within an agency, they don't do it because it's all too hard. And it was from that and from discussions that I had with other agents later on in my career. So after about 7 years into building Plum Partners, I built a very successful agency that was able to look after me very well. And from talking to other agents in the industry, that was their biggest fear, was going out on their own. Whilst they liked the idea and the principle of it, they were fearful of the costs and the extra time associated with it, that fear actually just held them back from doing anything at all and just staying where they were at. And after so many conversations with agents about this stuff, it made me think, wow, maybe there's a way I can help these people. Because, I was in that position. I was a high-performing agent once, and I was really scared and fearful of what was going to happen if I went and started my own business. But I did it anyway, and figured it all out in the hardest way. And that knowledge base that I built from that, I thought, wow, I could really help agents to do this in a much easier way, right? I already had the infrastructure, I already had the blueprint on how to do it, and I had an amazing team behind me. So maybe we could partner up with agents to, hold their hand through this whole process, help them set up their company, help them set up their accounts, help them do all the trust accounting and bookkeeping, social media, graphic design, all of the back-end stuff that you need. Also provide the subscriptions, the setup, the templates, hook up with suppliers. That way the agent could just focus on what they do best, which is listing and selling real estate. And over time, we can help that agent then get into recruitment of agents. We could help them to build a rent roll, and we could actually get them into a position where this would work for them. And so, yeah, that's where the idea of Plum Partners came. And in 2022, we actually launched Plum Partners with our first client. And today, wow, we've got over 46 clients, so partners, and they were all at one stage just high-performing agents in an agency thinking, wow, one day I could go and do this on my own maybe. But, the thought of actually going over the other side, pulling the trigger and doing it was probably too hard before we had the idea of Plum Partners. So we're really proud now to be partnered with all of these agents, having springboarded them into their own business. It's the fastest, easiest, most least risky way to launch your own real estate business. And I feel really good about it. It's just it's my favorite part of my career so far, because I'm helping people just like me who are in the same position as me, and I really feel like I can make a genuine difference to these people, to these agents and these business owners. And yeah, it just means that I get to work with a lot of people that are just like me as well, which is really awesome. So yeah, big step in our business and what we do. If you'd like to know anything else about Plum Partners, there's a link in the show notes that you can click. It'll take you to a bit of an explainer video. You can see what some of our clients say, and you could reach out if you're interested in having a chat about it. Just some information. Happy to send that to you, have a bit of a chat, and see what that might look for you. What does launching your own business look like? How long does it take? What does it cost? What can you expect? What's the ongoing support like? And what could it look like in 5 to 10 years? that'd be a really interesting conversation to have with you. So if you're interested, click on that link in the show notes. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you got some a good insight into what it takes to own your own business here today on the Get Keen podcast. Cheers. Thanks for tuning into the Get Keen podcast. If today's episode got you thinking about starting your own real estate business and building your own brand, Plum Partners may be able to help. Book a call using the link in the show notes, and let's see if we're the right fit to help you create, run, and grow your own real estate brand. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and follow me on Instagram at Dan_Lee_Plum. Until next time, keep getting keen.